What's up, guys? Welcome back to Nerd Media, and today I've got another video for you guys on The Last of Us. This video is in this format of like a long, 10-minute video for you guys today, just because I feel like this show is just so perfect, and I want to talk about why I think that, and why I think it's one of my favorite shows of all time, and why I think it's probably the best video game adaptation that we've seen from game to like TV, movie, or show or something. And yeah, and this is coming from somebody who hasn't fully played the games. Literally after the season ended on Sunday, I started playing the first game on Monday and I've been loving it, but not having the full knowledge of like part 2 and stuff and like knowing everything, I'm going to be talking about why I think the show is perfect as like someone who hasn't played the games prior to the show, and just why I think it's just such a great story. So without further ado, let's get into it because this show is just amazing and I can't wait to talk about it more. So first, I gotta start out by saying the story to this show is amazing, and I mean, it's not like an amazing story, but it's a very, very good story that it's pretty easy to follow. Like, it's like a zombie like apocalypse basically, and Tess and Joel have to like get this kid like to like the hospital because they think that she may have a cure, but then Tess obviously dies along the way, and we get a lot of people dying along the way. So then it just becomes Joel and Ellie just being together, which is great because it's like kind of like by the end of the season they were bonding very well, and that was probably one of the like best parts of the season is just like seeing like their bond grow over time, especially with Joel like talking with Ellie and stuff because he originally didn't care for her at all, but by the end of the season he like he went from saying that she's just cargo to saying that he's like the one to saying that like she's the one that like healed him and everything, which is very, very nice, and I loved that. And yeah, I mean, like although everything with like the story and everything, just having like almost a different story each episode, like running into like new groups of people and everything was great, and it was super fun to see. And the episode lengths were obviously amazing. I mean, but one thing that's amazing that I'm probably gonna spend like 5 minutes talking about is the acting that Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey had in this season. Specifically, Bella Ramsey. I haven't really seen her in like any other like projects besides this, and I thought that her acting was amazing. I mean, like her acting as Ellie was just great, and I don't think anybody could have played it better than her. I mean, I know since I just started playing the game like 2 days ago, I know she doesn't look exactly like the characters, which is something that I know people were complaining about a little bit when the first trailers came out. But I don't really think that mattered. I mean, like her acting was amazing, and I personally didn't really think about it that much. I think that like it doesn't really matter, but her act, I don't think anybody could have played her better. And yeah, I mean, I just loved it. And she was definitely my top two favorites of the season, like as like characters and everything, because just yeah, their performance and their character development was great too. And more specifically, I think the character development that I loved the most in this season was definitely Joel, because he went from, like I said before, he went from saying that Ellie was just cargo to in the finale saying that she's the one that basically healed him with like all the things that have like gone on with him and his daughter, and like trying to like recover from that. And I honestly love that, and I love their kind of like relationship that they have in this show, and I can't wait to see that expand more in part two or season two. And yeah, I think Pedro Pascal did an amazing job as usual acting as Joel. And yeah, I mean, he's definitely, I think, the second best character of the series, and he's definitely has some of the best acting. Like I think Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal really did like amazing on those two parts. And I mean, just the reason why I think this show is just so perfect is because not only does it capture like the story of the games in a great way, but it also just like kind of like shines it in a different kind of way that just makes you like love the show. I mean, from like the first like scene of this season, I was immediately in love with it and I loved it. But like I just don't really know like they I know they like just I feel like they just did like the story in a different way to like kind of just like make you love the story even more, basically. And yeah, I mean, another thing that I loved about this season is definitely like the visual things that we got to see, like more specifically like in the mall and everything. Like I know visuals aren't really that big on like series like this because it isn't like Marvel where they're like constantly using visual effects, but I thought it was pretty great, and I did love a lot of scenes like when we were in the mall, like this shot right here, and with the giraffe scene, which is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite scene of the show. I just thought, like, okay, I'm gonna go off track a little bit. The giraffe scene is like a perfect definition of why this show is so good, because although the show has a lot of like violent things that happen in it and just like a lot of like emotional things, this one was definitely more like the lighthearted kind of like wholesome kind of moments of the show that kind of just makes the show so good to me. Like I like little moments like that we get in this show are just so great, and just like although we don't really, because usually if we get one of those, usually like 2 minutes later or like 2 seconds later, it's like ruined by someone fighting them. But yeah, I mean, just little moments like that is what make this show so great. And then the emotional moments, like for example episode 3 with bill Bill and Frank, is like one of the best like episodes of television. Like that show is just, that episode was like a masterpiece basically. That episode was amazing, and because it was an emotional story that focused on both of them, we didn't get a lot of Joel and Ellie because we had time to kind of like stretch out the story and expand on like side characters and stuff, which is something that I hope they do in season 2 because that was a great idea that they had. But like that giraffe scene and episode 3 are two perfect definitions of why the show is so amazing. The giraffe scene is wholesome and it has kind of like that light-hearted stuff that you get maybe once an episode or once every 2 episodes. And episode 3, just with Bill and Frank, shows how emotional this show can be and just like the personal stories that they have with like each side character. Because compared to Bill and Frank in the game, which because I just got to that part yesterday, it's very different. And I personally, I think a lot of people would agree with me on this. I like Bill and Frank's version in the show better than I do in the game. I mean, there's obvious reasons why, but like yeah, those are the two things that are like perfect definitions of why this show is so amazing. And I'll talk about that more later, but right now I'm going to talk about the clickers and like the runners and stuff that we saw in the season. We didn't get to see a lot of them, but I think that was kind of like a smart choice. Like I think that's another thing that this show did well that made it kind of like so unique and good compared to the games, because in the games you get a lot of clickers, but in this show we didn't really get a ton of them, which I personally have no problem with. I mean, I thought the show did perfectly fine, could have done perfectly fine without them, but that's not me saying I don't want them in there, but I mean just this show really truly showed how like amazing it can be even without like the cool like clicker zombie things that like a lot of people would find to be like one of the best parts of the show. And yeah, I mean, I think they confirm we're going to be getting a lot more of those in season 2, which I have no problem with. I'm honestly excited for that, but yeah. And then just like again, like the overall story, the singular like unique episodes that we get with each side characters. I think we got about like 3 of those maybe this season, which is great considering that we have 9 episodes, but yeah, I mean, everything. And like since I haven't played the game, I was a little bit confused by the ending when the season ended, but I think that the ending is perfect, and it sets up a lot of like suspense and problems that Joel and Ellie could have with each other in season 2 and beyond, because the fact that Joel went on like he killed everybody in that hospital, which I'm sorry to say that was a really cool scene and I was kind of rooting for Joel in that moment, but like the fact that he lied about that is probably going to come back to bite him in season 2 or season 3, because I think they said they're going to expand part 2 of the games into multiple seasons, which is a great idea because according to a lot of people that's a big story and they should do that. But yeah, I mean, this show is perfect. There's a lot of reasons why, because you have episode 3, you have actually Henry and Sam. That episode is another great example. It's not as like it's not as emotional of a story as Bill and Frank, but it's still a very good story. And like the stories that we get, like we got Bill and Frank, we got Henry and Sam, and then you obviously have Joel and Ellie. Those are like the main like stories that are kind of like they're emotional. They have like little like wholesome, lighthearted moments, and they're like funny. Like everything about it is like basically perfect with all 3 of those different side stories, which is what makes this show so great to me. I mean, I think I cried at least like 3 or 4 times in overall in this show, which is pretty big considering that I don't really get that emotional during shows. Although I did get emotional a lot during Superman Lois, the finale of season 1, but that's besides the point. Overall, The Last of Us is great, and I may be making a video like this soon once I finish the